Hello friends, welcome to Akulmach Business Channel, and today we would like to discuss about why we fail in our strategy. It's a very important subject, especially for leaders and for business people, and maybe it is related to the way we think, maybe it is related to the way our mind is wired. So stay tuned, I will come back to you after a short break with all the facts and figures. So, friends, we all know that we spend a lot of time and we actually think a lot about making a strategy. Whenever we actually work on a project, we like to basically look at all the data points and whatever the logical steps which are required in order to make the strategy, which is completely foolproof. Whenever we work on a strategy, we want to make sure that we have covered all aspects of the strategy planning so that whenever the strategy is executed, implemented, it has all the answers so that the people who are following this strategy can work towards it. And but in spite of taking all precautions and taking all care and also taking all the help from the best strategists known to the man, many times strategy do not work as we expected the strategy to work, simply because there are certain things which are beyond humans, and I will tell you why. Maybe this is because of our brain itself. When we look at our brain is designed in a very different way. The brain is a very complex machine. It is much complex, much more complex than the computers that we use today. And the evolution of the brain has also happened because of our conditions in which the humans evolved. So when we were basically caveman and subsequently we were hunter-gatherer, there were two main items on the list for which we had to strategize, which are food, that means humans have to find the food, and survival, that means we have to protect ourselves. And over the evolution processes, these are the two overriding rules that brain follows. That means it has to look at the food aspect which is required by the humans and also safety and security. And because of that, the evolution or the wiring of the brain, these are the two rules which are at the top of the value chain. And whenever the processing happens, the brain consumes a lot of energy. As you know that nearly 25 to 30% of the resources or sometimes also 50% resource of the body is consumed only by brain, which is 3% of the body. So you can imagine that the body consumes lesser energy than the small organ of our body consumes more energy, almost 30 to 50% of the energy. So in order to process faster, quicker, so that you can find your food quickly and you survive also in the environment, there are certain ways the brain actually has done the wiring and is part of the evolution. So there is not much difference between the caveman and the modern human in terms of the brain power. The brain remains almost the same, even though the conditions in which we survive today might have changed, but the brain follows a system where it gets a lot of input in terms of decision. I mean, it is an input from the various sensory organs so that it can decide what is the right mode of action. So the right mode of action, say for example, if you're walking on the street, then you have to look at safety and security. So brain basically looks at certain patterns which are evolving right now in front of your eyes, and you're also listening to certain signals. And because of this, brain is getting millions and millions of data every second. And there is so a lot of data, a lot of bits of data flowing inside your brain. What brain does is it takes it and put it in a data store. There is a data store in the brain where all the data, millions of bits of data, that goes in and gets stored, and it becomes part of future processing. But for instant processing, it is known and it has been proven scientifically that the brain processing can happen only at the speed of 40 bits to about 120 bits per second. and that is for the immediate safety and security of your of your environment, of yourself as human being. So when you're looking at the same time, brain is consuming so much of energy in order to function in the first place. So how do you strike a balance between safety, security, and all these millions of bits of data which is flowing in your brain, and then the conservation of energy which your body is providing to the brain? So I think the brain wiring has done in a very smart way, where it looks at the patterns. It looks at the patterns which are already stored in your brain. So it based on the experience. So for example, if you're walking for the first time on the street, you will stumble upon something that gets stored in your brain as a pattern. If such this kind of situation emerges in future, the solution is, stay away from that obstacle which is going to trip you. So things like that. So the brain comes up with a ready-made solution for these patterns which is identified, and because of that, in low processing of 40 bits to 120 bits, it is able to give you a solution for 99% of the issues that you face. And this is also called experience, because in day-to-day life you tend to ignore some of these factors which your brain is picking up, but you may not even examine it. You will not even acknowledge it because you are not bothered about those events which are happening, but you are bothered about your safety and your survival as a paramount rule. And therefore, some of these inputs are overlooked, and the previously stored patterns are brought, and the solutions around those patterns are actually thrown at you, so that you can immediately take corrective measures based on your experience. Now, considering this, the brain is very smartly able to come up with a quick solution, but once in a while you actually see that the brain also bypass this autopilot. Say for example, if you're driving on the street, people say that driving becomes a second nature, because once you become master at driving, you don't want to even think about how to press a gear, how to change your gear, how to handle the steering, or when you should press your clutch, brakes, etc. Because that becomes your nature, and the brain is not spending any processing around this activity of driving. But in case you come across a dangerous situation, then all of this experience cuts off, this autopilot cuts off, and then immediately all these new inputs which are coming in started getting processed. So this is how the brain functions, and only in the 1% scenarios the brain will look at things which matters for your safety and for your security. So considering this process of the brain, this is how the brain function. We have to look at, when we do strategy planning, our drawback of the strategy of the strategist is basically the experience that person is having. So if he is not able to get those inputs, or he is not able to see those inputs on the paper, he will not be able to even put those points as part of the strategy, because it's all based on the experience. So in other words, your experience itself is pulling you down and preventing you to make a foolproof strategy, because your brain is wired that way, that until and unless you are put into the cauldron of danger, your brain will not bypass the autopilot. And because of these, sometimes almost 50% of the facts can be completely overlooked by you, and you look at the previously recorded sessions or patterns, and you're driven by those patterns. And because of that, even though you are a very smart strategist, you may not be able to come up with a strategy which is completely foolproof. So therefore, this is the reason that humans are not able to make a very strong, robust strategy. And that is why all strategy planners says that the strategy will evolve. I mean, you will make a ballpark figure, and because of this reason, that whatever strategy they are making may have to undergo some changes based on the how the execution of the strategy happens. And that is the reason that even though very smart strategists work with politicians, and invariably all the politician strategies also do not work because of this challenge. And is there a way we can change this? Of course, the easy solution is that to use computer. There are some smart strategy planning software which are not having these issues of pattern matching, because in case of human brains, even though the brain is a very complex computer and it has the ability to process lot of data, but it does not, because the wiring prevents it to do that. It actually looks at the previously recorded patterns and give you a solution which was also previously recorded based on the experience. However, that is not a problem with the computers, and whenever we talk about the computers, we can actually build very complex algorithm and then start putting in all these inputs of whatever we are getting. And there are some strategy planning software which cost a bomb, and if we can afford it, we can take help of these computers to make our foolproof strategy or nearly foolproof strategy. But I think as the topic of the discussion today is that it may be impossible for you to come out of your experience zone itself while making a strategy planning. So you may be a very smart person in real life. You would have done so many things and you would have 30, 40 years of experience. But then even you will fail because something new which you're embarking on and you're making a strategy for this new area, your brain will not be able to look beyond your own experience. Even when you team up with another or one or two bunch of guys, the collective experience of these bunch of guys will not go beyond their personal experiences. And that is where the problem is. And that is why I thought, I will talk about this subject and throw some inputs, and also want to gather your comments on this, your suggestions, and what do you feel about this? Is it whatever I've said, you believe in it, or if you don't believe in it, what are your comments on this subject? So for today, I like to say goodbye, and I'll catch you next time again very soon in the next episode. You please take care of yourself.